There are a lot of barriers preventing people with disabilities from getting into work, from getting into education, from getting into skills development, and all of those need to be broken down if we want to move forward. The ILO has been involved in promoting opportunities for people with disabilities since 1922, just shortly after the ILO was set up. And even at that stage, people were talking about getting people with disabilities into the ordinary programs and services that were open to the population at large. Now, recently, that has become much more important because there's a new convention on the rights of persons with disabilities that talks about the obligations to open the doors of the mainstream. So what is the ILO doing? Well, we gather a lot of information on what's working in that regard. Where has this approach been put in place, and what was required to make it work? We're just preparing a set of guidelines on how to go about opening up the doors of mainstream institutions, of training institutions for people with disabilities, and we do a lot of training, a lot of advocacy work. And finally, we have some technical cooperation, which is helping certain countries to take on board this inclusive approach. Part of the problem that people with disabilities face is that the barrier of negative attitudes and mistaken assumptions is often not visible. And so that attitudinal change is needed. And I think when that happens among policymakers, among people who manage vocational training programs, etc., that people with disabilities will certainly be incorporated. All of this needs to be well prepared, though. You can't just send people with disabilities to training centres that haven't looked to make sure that they're accessible, physically accessible, that the information available is accessible to people who are blind, and that there's provisions for people who are deaf in the form of sign language interpretation. And very importantly, teachers and trainers need to be prepared so that they can effectively include people with disabilities in their classrooms alongside non-disabled people. And then when it comes to employment, of course, many employers are just a bit apprehensive because they may not know any people with disabilities and mistakenly assume that they cannot, that they have very low working capacity and that they cannot contribute to the workplace. And of course, we in the ILO know that there is a strong business case for employing people with disabilities. People with disabilities have demonstrated their productivity, their very good attendance rate, their low accidents rate, and so on. And all of that information is part of the message that the ILO gives to employers and to trade unions to try and improve opportunities for disabled people to earn a living for themselves, for their families, and to contribute to the communities and the greater society they live in.